Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is another episode of Great Dungeon Masters Steel. Now this is going to be an ongoing series, hopefully. Hopefully I won't give up on it like I've given up on some stuff in the past. But this is going to be an ongoing series where I'm going to be doing role-playing game reviews that are going to be mostly focused on Dungeons & Dragons, which is like the major role-playing game that I play. These are going to be products, adventures, campaign worlds, whatever, that I have found in my travels, that I have picked up and I have read, and basically they have inspired me in some way. Some of the things within those books, those, whatever source material that I have, has inspired me in some way to, think about using something like that in my campaign world. I'm a big believer in the fact that the whole idea between Great Dungeon Master Steel is that there is a plethora of knowledge out there in books, movies, TV shows, and, role-playing game books that you can completely and totally steal and, could take as much or as little from those and add them to your world, and it'll add a very much more rich situation. Because the thing is, and I'm kind of getting away, I want to talk to you about Crypts of Indormancy here in just a second, but the problem is that, especially for me, is that I've had a game group for like 30 years. I'm 47 years old. I've been playing D&D since I was 7 when my older brother introduced it to me. And the whole point is that after 4 decades of playing D&D, there's kind of an expectation of what you can expect from a Undead Viking campaign world, an Undead Viking adventure, if you will. So by using stuff that other people have made, I'm able to add in, I have my own stuff, but then I'm able to sprinkle in some seasoning that will actually make my campaigns better and keep my friends on their toes when we're playing. So that being said, that's the whole goal of this Great Dungeon Masters Steel. So here we have, this is the Crypts of Indormancy. Now, Crypts of Indormancy, I kickstarted this. This is from Melsonian Arts Council. It's from Ezra Clevery is the thing. This is I think it's one of those, the Melsonian Arts Council is the publisher. I think it's one of those I don't know how to even explain what it is, but I mean, it's one of those things where other people can bring their books to a publisher and then they get it kind of self-published or whatever. I found out about this. I don't know how I found out about this on Kickstarter. I think I backed another adventure that this person created. And then I got a notification, because that's a cool thing about Kickstarter, is if you find something that's really out there and weird, and you have to, if you click on the person, you can follow them, and then you can actually follow the stuff they create and put on Kickstarter, but you can also follow the stuff that they back. And I have found so many weird, strange role-playing game books that normally you likely never get. I'm pretty sure there's a pretty small print run on this. I think you can get it through I know you can still get it, because you can go to DriveThruRPG and you can get the PDF and stuff like that. But I'm a big believer in books. I like holding on to books, and this one isn't all that thick or whatever, but this has got a lot of cool things going on. It's got some problems too, and I'll talk about that. But alright, but trust me, if you are an RPG player and you really like kind of out of the way, really weird stuff that isn't the standard, and there's nothing wrong with the books that the big publishers come out. There's a lot of great stuff that they make, but a lot of the really, really talented people, the stuff that's going to be on the outskirts of things, they're publishing it through Kickstarter. And if you go and you check that stuff out and then follow those people, you'll be able to track down some of that crazy stuff that's kind of hidden in the weeds. But regardless, let's kind of just talk about Crypts of Indormancy now. So Crypts of Indormancy is a relatively low-level adventure. It is set in a world, and obviously this is the setting that the creator made. You don't have to take this, but it is set in a world where it is mostly an island culture and an archipelago, if you will. And but it's set in kind of a spot where there's high mountains, and up on top of one of these mountains there is this crypt that people have known about for a long time, but nobody goes up there, nobody does anything with it, because there are bad things inside of it, and you know the people they have heard that have traveled up there to like try to find treasures or what have you within it have never returned. So of course, being adventurers, and if you just drop that little tiny bit of information in the brains of your players, they're immediately going to be like, let's go. So this is weird because it's an adventure, and I know that there might be people out there that like your DM might pick this up, and I don't want to give away too much, but you know, as you can probably guess, there's more to the story. You know, the crypt itself is you know, guarded by creatures, undead. You know, which are not your standard undead. These aren't going to be like, oh, hey, there's 2d8 ghouls in this room. No, they've created their own weird monsters that they've placed in those particular locations that have all their own special rules. They're also, you can tell the person who wrote this is very, very intelligent, or at least has a very good access to a thesaurus. There's a lot of times I was reading this book and there were like words that I was just like, what does that mean? You know, just like, and so I'd have to like quick look it up or whatever, and then it like to just basically grok exactly what they're trying to get across. But after reading it for a little bit, I was able to get kind of the inference. Now, as with a lot of these self-titled books, like the maps for like the areas in the dungeon are almost always placed on the inside covers, which I think is really nice touch. Actually, I've always really liked that, because like if you actually having this book out is easier. You know, and like if you have like a book, it's in the middle, it's going to be like flopping, but if you have this, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I have that. Admittedly, these maps are pretty like small and straightforward, and they definitely do lend themselves to the like theater of the mind type of playing. I remember when I used to play in, there was a friend of mine who lived in, like worked in an office building, and on the weekends the office building it had like several different companies in this office building, like you're probably familiar with something like that. But there were these large meeting rooms, and we would go and we'd play in one of the large meeting rooms on the weekend. One of the nice things there was a big whiteboard on one side of it, and so as the DM you could just sit there and kind of draw what was seen and stuff like that, you know. And obviously I'm not the greatest artist in the world, but it was a lot easier to, like, instead of saying, oh, you know, it's like you have like a semicircular room that is this, that, and the other thing, and there's a bas relief over in this place, you were able to just draw it out. But anyway, so like when you have these particular maps are not very, like, it isn't classic, you know, squares on the map or anything like that. It is very, very, like, it lends itself towards that theater of the mind, where you're just going to be describing it to the players and having them kind of figure out, you know, what exactly they think. All right, so the big thing about this particular one is that, well, there's a couple things I don't like about it, and I'm going to get those things out of the way because, you know, like overall, I was actually kind of happy with the book. I was, you know, I really enjoyed some of the things that like made sense, and I really enjoyed like some of like the traps and like the curses, and also the monsters that are involved. Really, really creepy monsters. And if you're going to be playing in this, I would strongly suggest, you know, hey, turn this off or whatever, because you want to be able to experience, I guess, the monsters, and you want to be able to experience the traps instead of just like saying, oh, I go over here and I push this button and it's fine. You know, you don't want to be able to do that. So quick thing, what I didn't like, you know, I mean, the person can obviously write, and they write really well. A lot of these things, when they're in these books that are small, like there'll be like, you know, like really bigger font and stuff like that. But I mean, this is like, you know, here's like the history page. It's like small font, definitely a lot of information, a lot of words, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff that's gonna like put you into what's going on. Here's just like I mean, I'm going to just read like this thing. Like here, this is, if anyone taps on the top and sides of the sarcophagus, its west end sounds hollow compared to the others, suggesting a panel only a finger or two thick. Close inspection reveals a hairline seam around this panel. Prying out the panel intact requires an hour of labor with metal tools and artificial light. Anyone removing the panel intact can do so without activating the trap inside. On the inner side of this panel, metal straps riveted to the stone hold in place 4 250 milliliter glass ampules. Ampules 1 and 2 contain a white mineral powder. Tubes 2 and 4 contain a clear liquid. Okay, so, and I'm not going to go read any further, but that's like 2 paragraphs of this, and they go into very, very, very long discussion and description of the things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just that sometimes, like, you get into, like, some of these things where it's like you have it almost seems like it's like, why would I use one word to describe it when I could use six? You know, like the Henry David Thoreau method of writing, or the Wagner method of composing music. You know, just why would I? You know, it's just, and that's fine, right? You know, but it's just a little wordy, and so some people, I think, are going to be turned away by some of the things. Like, here's one. The trapdoor's centuries in the necrovoltaic field of the resurrection apparatus have created an unexpected phenomena connected with these crystalline prints. Anyone who perceives the prints directly makes quantum perceptual contact through time with the antecessive subaltern that made them. This causes no ill effects, but the first such person who later casts any spell, no matter how much time intervenes, automatically conjures the particular antecessive subaltern that made the prints, in addition to casting whatever spell they had chosen. It's like, why? Why are you writing like this? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some people that are going to, like, read it and they're like, oh, this is awesome, you know? And then it's just, but for me, it's just kind of like, meh, you know, like, whatever. You know, just, like, get to the point or whatever. Other things. The maps themselves were really, really confusing. Not so much like the map, like the actual what's on the map or anything like that, but the fact that the maps were not placed in such a way that it actually made sense. So, how do I put this? So, like, the person put, like, the first map that matters, like the wilderness map where you're approaching the crypt or the tomb or whatever. This is that first map. This is the last map. This is, like, the last map that matters. I mean, I don't know if he was, like, a big vinyl record player when you have the 2 record set, and, like, you know, it's like, then the first disc was 1 and 4, and the second disc was 1 and 3, and, like, you know, 2 and 3. And the reason for that was because, like, you'd listen to side 1, you'd lift side 1 up, you'd put side 2 on, you know, and then, then what would happen then is, like, when side 2 is done, you could flip side 2 over and then play side 3. You wouldn't have to go and get another disc. That's the whole point of that. And so, but, you know, which doesn't really matter at all for this particular situation. But that's one of those things that just always, like, it just kind of drives me crazy, right? You know, and and then like, so you have, this is, like, the first map that matters. This is the last map that matters, and this is the second map that matters, and this is the third map that matters. So maybe that is the method to the madness, but when I was trying to read through the book and trying to figure out which map was which, it was actually, like, really, really annoying. Like, I couldn't figure it out. It was like one of those things where I had to, like, kajigger through it for, like, 10 minutes, trying to, like, what's going on here? But regardless, I was able to figure it out. So, now the things I really liked. There are expansive rules in this that are talking about actually dealing with the fact that you're climbing a mountain and you're going to be up high and you're basically climbing onto a glacier, and the danger that you're going to be put into for the elements, and also climbing said glacier and being able to slip and fall and whatever. They actually have a very good combat that will most likely happen to the players as they are climbing up, which always adds a certain level of excitement and a certain level of involvement from the players. I mean, it's one thing to having to fight, you know, some supernatural beastie when you and them are on a plane and you're staring at each other, but it's another thing when you're, like, using pitons and you're slowly climbing a giant ice wall, and then something decides to take that moment to attack you that can make things difficult and add a level of gravitas to the combat itself. So I did enjoy that a great deal. The history of the world or whatever I thought was really, really good. It actually kind of came in, like, perfect for me, because I've been, like, trying to come up, I've been thinking through this idea of a world where elves aren't necessarily really good people. Like, everybody always thinks of elves as being these noble creatures. I mean, heck, even, like, the drow, which are, like, supposed to be super evil, like, now we're supposed to understand them to be just, you know, misunderstood or whatever, you know. But so I'm coming up with a world where, like, elves are, like, you know, not, I mean, not necessarily the bad guys, but they aren't really well trusted, and not like well trusted because they're like strange and weird, but like not really well trusted because they really don't care about the other races very much, and like, you know, because they have this like almost immortality, long life thing going on. And not exactly the most original like idea, but you know, it's something that like it's a branch away from like this idea of like elves being noble and fighting evil or whatever. So I like so. In this world, the elves are the exact same thing. You know, they're just kind of like, they look at everybody else as being kind of beneath them, and treat them as such. You know, because like, you know, I forget what the exact words are, but they talk about humans, the islanders, as being nothing like little better than the animals that inhabit these islands as well. They just consider them to be kind of pests, and people react to them, as you can probably guess. But anyway. There are actually like rules for determining if like you suffer, and you could suffer like an injury, like almost like a critical hit, which doesn't really apply to me because we actually have a critical hit table that we use. I'll talk about that sometime when I talk about the D&D version that we play, something that we created. But there are some pretty cool things, like if you have a fall, or certain creatures will actually do like crippling injuries to people, where it's like, you know, breaking feet or like, you know, things like that you will need like high level magic to heal those things to take care of it. The art is actually pretty cool. Like, I mean, here's this picture of this weird beastie that like one of the things, and for just like, you know, line drawing stuff, I was very impressed with how well the art looks and how good things are. The traps there, and I like, this is a tough one because I want to talk about how cool this idea of this trap is, but there is like, the whole idea behind this is that this is the crypt of an elven lord, an elven mage or whatever, that may not have been like the best dude in the world, and may have actually had some very, very evil intent, and but like, he knew that he was going to be betrayed. He knew that he was most likely not going to live, and so he had this idea where he wasn't going to go classic, I'm going to be a lich or something like that, but he came up with a theory where he could basically use the power of time, or the power of quantum mechanics, because he was like not only a wizard, but he was like a science wizard basically, and like using the ability to rejuvenate himself, basically go back in time, in present time. Like, so like, eventually somebody's going to find their crypt, they're going to trigger this mechanism that is, and this is the big spoiler, so you should probably, if you're playing this, you shouldn't be listening right now, but like, so they'll trigger this, and he will go back in time himself, so he won't die, but he'll go back but stay in the same time. That's the whole thing. Like, so he will go reverse himself, and he won't die, and he'll be able to come back and once again start his evil machinations to whatever his big plan was, which I'm not going to talk about right now. So that is a common theme. There's all this kind of weird super science stuff going on. Now, I'm not usually a big fan of super science stuff happening within these worlds or whatever. I'm not a huge fan of that, because like, there's just fantasy science are just kind of you know, like, I mean, I'm like that person where it's like, oh, you know, we play D&D and there's like cannons and flintlock pistols, and I'm just kind of like, I don't really like that. You know, just like, you know, that's just personal preference. If you dig it, great, but I mean, that's just not me. But regardless, like, there's a really, really cool trap, and the big thing is it's both magical and scientific. So the players are going to, like, because this place has been around forever and nobody has managed to break really into it, because they don't have some of the passwords and things like that to shut down the automatons that are going to protect the tomb. There is a trap where there's a door where it's going to be very difficult to open, and as players are wont to do, they are most likely going to end up casting magic spells. They're going to cast like a detect magic on the door. They're going to cast knock on the door. You know, they're going to cast any number of these crazy things that they're going to try to maybe just fireball the door down, if you will. So The trap itself is set up that like it's fueled by magical energy, and what it does is it creates a version of the spellcaster that like creates it out of time and space, but it's basically like creates an exact version of that spellcaster exactly like 5 minutes before. And so like all of a sudden this version of the spellcaster shows up in the room they're in, and they're just like, and they're doing exactly what that person was doing 5 minutes before. So it actually tells the dungeon master, it's like, remember what your spellcasters are doing at this moment. Like so if one of them is like guarding the door 5 minutes, you know, like they were guarding the door. If one of them was, you know, checking out a tapestry on the wall, remember that. So the person shows up, and the two of them are in existence, and they're like looking at each other like, what's going on? And so what happens is, and it's impossible to stop this, you can't even killing like the other one actually like dooms the wizard, because what happens is because like it's a matter antimatter type of thing, so that, because that one isn't really even real. It's like just a simulacrum of the original. But what happens is that like the world can't handle the fact that it has two of the exact same thing, and so the original one, the person, like basically after a minute they start feeling nauseous, and what's happening is that their matter, their whatever, is being sucked by the world and being placed in the original one, or the one that just got summoned. And so you're going to tell the wizard, it's like, yeah, you don't feel really good after like a minute. And they're really like, oh, you know, it's like, oh, it's like, you know, you're sweating and you feel nauseous. And then like after like another minute or something like that, it's going to be like they've got severe radiation poisoning. It's like they're going to feel like they're going to feel like their skin's going to be blotchy, and it's like actually going to feel like it's sagging. They're going to be reduced to 1 hit point no matter how many hit points they have. And then it's like, and then like 2 minutes after that, their whole body just, and everything that they have as well, like all their equipment, everything like that, everything just kind of like collapses in itself. It's just like, you know, like kind of an implosion, and it becomes like a puddle on the ground, and like it just bubbles, and like people, the rest of the party probably watching horrifically as this thing just like boils away, like, but not with no heat, right? It just, and then it's like, and then you basically just tell you like, I think you should hand a note, honestly. Like you write a note out and you hand it to the other player, and the note is just going to say, you're perfectly fine. You have no memory of the last like 10 minutes or whatever. You don't remember coming in the room. You don't remember casting the spell. Your thing. You've lost 15 minutes of your life, and you can just carry on as whatever. And so you write that to them, and then you tell them, you know, throw the note away or whatever. But, and the players can say, oh, I don't know what happened. You know, it's like literally they don't know. They don't know that they cast a spell. They don't know that they did the things. So you have to have your player buy into it. But obviously the other PCs are going to be like, what's going on? You know, and they're not maybe going to trust that person very much. It's nothing that, it doesn't harm the players, but it sows this seed, and this is like one of the very first things that happens. And it sows this wonderful seed of distrust and wonderment of the thing, and you could, if you wanted to, you could like use that later as the DM. And I'm like, I gotta use this. I mean, that's like the one thing. The whole Great Dungeon Master steal, I'm stealing that. I mean, if nothing else out of this book, I'm going to steal that, and I'm going to use that in some way at some point, because I love the idea of, like, you know, having a payoff 6 months later, right? You know, it's like, you know, just like something where, you know, maybe something affected their body in some way, some weird way that, like weird quantum mechanical extraplanar creatures would want to like seek that person out for whatever reason. Just sow the seed and then come back to it later. and then just have things where it's like, you know, it's like maybe like there's just something slightly different about them, like spook the players, right, in some way, like that maybe things aren't exactly on the up and up kind of thing. But anyway, so that one thing, I don't even know what I backed this for. I think it was like $10 or $15 or something like that. And that one thing is worth it for this book alone. Now, there are tons of other things going on. I kind of went into a pretty long discussion about that particular trap, and so I want to kind of speed this up. But everything in this is like it's pretty. There are some straightforward fights. Like, you know, like as I said, there's automatons. There's like, you know, basically statues that will be requesting passwords to get by, and if they stay in the same spot, they will unfortunately, you know, those statues will attack. There are some super creepy like dead bodies that the players are going to find of islanders that have come here to try to like, you know, gather the treasures that are located in, but they've all met grisly fates. Basically, their heads have been cut off, and it looks like they were cut off like very slowly and painfully, and then they are going to find later that there are, and you can kind of see, like, you know, you can see this creature like holding that head right there. They're going to run into those creatures, and yes, that's their whole goal, is that they try to restrain the player, like they try to grapple the player, and then they take the time to like basically slowly saw the person's head off, you know, you know, like, because they use that head to place onto other bodies than to like create more undead kind of thing. You know, crazy, creepy stuff like that. There is a cool thing where there is, and this is the picture of it, they'll find a room that has a large war game on the table, and they're going to have lots of little miniatures and stuff, and so you could probably, there's going to be all kinds of things that you can do with that. Like, you know, it's obviously going to be worth some money or whatever, but the players themselves could like pick those up and keep them and use them for whatever reason. There are like, the whole thing is very creepy and very weird because of the fact that, one, you're up in the Arctic, and you're not up in the Arctic, I mean, you're on top of a glacier, like towards the top of a mountain, so like, you have to deal with the weather and the fact that it is just kind of still up here, and you're going to see like bloody footprints and stuff on the floor, but they're like dried, like freeze-dried bloody footprints, so you have no idea how long they've been there, that sort of thing. You know, like, and there are just tons of just like, not like cool treasures, like not just, oh, you find 50 gold pieces. It's like, oh no, you find like, you know, a old like what the players will say is like a dinosaur skull, but like the PCs will be like, I don't know what this is, like some big giant Tyrannosaurus Rex skull. It's like, what is this? Is it some kind of dragon or whatever? I mean, you can buy into it however you want. I mean, ultimately what happens is that, like, if they do the wrong thing, they will stumble upon, you know, the thing. There's really another creepy picture. They will accidentally trigger the machine that will cause the Elf Lord to start being resurrected and start being recreated. And then, ultimately, what happens is, in this, you will have a situation to deal with. Because he's basically a high-level wizard. He's got machinations on the world that are not going to be good. He wants to, you know, kind of enslave and take over, you know, not only his, like, he not only wants to rule like his elven race, but he wants to subjugate all the other races, and that could very well lead to a very long campaign story where the players themselves are going to be trying to work, you know, maybe they're going to join him, maybe they want to like take over the rest of the world, or maybe they want to like obviously do the good thing, right, and like, you know, stop the wizard from doing what he's doing. But that being said, and I didn't show you a ton of the book, and I didn't like tell you a lot about the other things that are going on. It is, I mean, like here, like the bestiary, the diremptive evasculator. You know what I mean? It's just, these are the magnetic hypernaut, the spectral inoculator. These are the names of them, and this kind of goes hand in hand. It's like the Stertorus recapitator. You know, just, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I get it. You have these crazy names for these things, and that's fine, I guess. But there are definitely like there are definitely like it almost feels like in some ways like I'm gonna write a book that makes you realize just how smart I am, you know, and which, you know, that's me trying to determine the intent of the creator, not necessarily what the creator was intending. So take that for what you will. But there you go. That is Great Dungeon Master Steel, The Crypts of Indormancy. Like I said, track it down, and if you dig the idea of like a cool crypt that's going to have some cool monster battles. It's going to have a cool wilderness area that gets you there. Some very cool traps that are going to confound your players. And also just like probably what could very possibly be like a very, very great opening adventure that is going to propel your players down the path of a very long like campaign, if you will. So there you go. If you have any questions about this, or if you have any suggestions of books that I should take a look at for Great Dungeon Master Steel, I'd love to hear those. My goal is, like I said, to do these as often as I get done reading something that inspires me. You know, it's got its flaws. The book has its flaws, but in the end, it was a good read. It was a positive read, and something that like I'm gonna at least steal one thing out of this for sure, maybe more. You know, and I appreciate the art, the direction, and the ingenuity of the author. So there you go. Go ahead, post your comments. Let me know what you think, and as always, be the best version of you that you possibly can be. Remember, the more love you give out to the universe, I guarantee you, the more love you're going to get straight back, hitting you right in the kisser. Until next time on The Viking, you're awesome. See you later.